All right, well, welcome to our Deliberate Orthodoxy podcast. Tonight I got Ron McKinney with us. I'm not going to go too far into his story because I'm going to let him introduce himself here in a minute. He teaches with me at I.A. Lewis, and super grateful for him. I've watched him be a profitable impact at I.A. Lewis to the young men and to the students as a whole there, and to the teachers. And so thank you for being with us tonight, Mr. McKinney. I'm just going to go Mr. McKinney because that's what's in my head. All right, and so got some questions. Just for full disclosure, I gave him these questions beforehand, so he's been looking at them. And what we kind of want to talk about tonight is just this generation of young men coming up. You know, who do they look to? You know, where do they look? What are they looking to? What should they be looking to? And just talk about kind of the impact that not only men can be on the young men, but Christian men. And what should we be doing? And so it's what we kind of want to talk about tonight. But to get started, Mr. McKinney, tell me a little about yourself, about your testimony to salvation, things of that nature.
Okay, groovy. So my name is Ron McKinney. As I call him Coach Pittman. So
right.
As Coach pointed out, I am 25 years old. I shouldn't say old. 25 years young.
Yeah.
And like he said, I work at I.A. Lewis. I'm the art teacher there, teaching the students not only how to be capable artists when they're in the classroom, but also how to carry themselves as responsible, productive young adults, because they're about to be young adults.
Right.
So on top of doing the teaching stuff during the day, when I'm at home or whenever I have free time, I actually own an animation studio also.
Yeah.
It's a Christian-based animation studio where we're pretty much our first project is where we're talking about the events of Revelation, and how they correlate with what John saw and then what they could look like in real time.
Right.
And so that's what I do. I'm like the artistic Batman.
Yes, there you go.
And then I'm also a children's pastor. And so somehow along the way, my life evolved to revolve around, the youth.
Yeah,
or even
right.
Little children,
Right.
from the ages of at least like 3 all the way up until sometimes 16 or 17.
Right.
And so that's just a little bit about me. I am married. I love my wife, Trinity. We've been married for about a little bit over a year now.
Yeah.
And so we have 2 dogs, Chachi and Gypsy. So that's kind of the home life. And so my testimony, man, it's a long testimony.
All right, well, let's do it very quickly now. No, I'm joking.
Pretty much typical, grew up in a Christian home.
Right.
My faith was a product of my parents' faith. And so, as children, we would mimic what our parents would do.
Yeah.
If my dad was going to church, I would go to church.
Yeah.
If he wouldn't go to church, I would go to church. But my dad, growing up, he was my hero. Growing up. And sad case that happens, which I think I'll get into a little bit with a few of the other questions.
Okay.
Is like the whenever a split happens in the household,
right.
Things can happen. And for us, I was typically with my mom more, and then thank God for my stepdad.
Right.
My stepdad was another one of my heroes growing up too, and
right.
Still is. And so at that time, they split up when I was around 10 or 11, and at that age, it's very pivotal to have a solid male figure in the home.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because those are the makings of a young man. They're about to be a teenager and everything, and so we would go to church and stuff like that. And I knew nothing. I knew literally nothing. I would just go in, and if we were with my grandma, I would sleep on her lap because those were like. And it's crazy it was in a church because that was like the most times where I would feel the most comfortable. And so one day, I was around 13 years old. My parents would make us go to the Sunday school, or not Sunday school, but VBS.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and one day we were watching this video about science, and I come from a scientific background. Even though I'm an artist, I grew up wanting to be an engineer. And so anything with like organisms or science or anything mechanical, I was naturally drawn towards. And so one day they put up a video, and there's this guy explaining like the cosmos, the universe, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Something of origin.
Right. Yes.
But the thing that got me to know that God exists was when he started to break down the proteins within the body, and he got to the protein called laminin.
Yes.
And I was like, no way. There's this protein shaped in a cross.
Yeah. Right.
With my mom, we were like, oh wow. I was like, God's real, and they're like, yeah, we know.
Right, yeah.
And so for a little bit, I had a little bit of a fire. I got baptized around that same time too, because I was like, yeah, that's who I want to be.
Right.
I want to be like Jesus. But then high school happens. Influenced by the wrong crowd.
Right.
Being on the football team, lots of bad influences. When
Yeah.
you think they're supposed to be the good influence
Right.
on campus. And so I never really cracked open my Bible. When I pray, it would be more like, God, give me this, or, I just praying up in thin air. And then even getting to the part where, like, meditation is becoming, like, this thing, like, oh, yeah, but I meditate and now I'm feeling better, And so even almost dabbling into, like, the New Age stuff.
I got you.
And that died out because I was just like, it's not helping. It's not working or anything, And so growing up, also, this pays a lot into my testimony too. I never drank or never smoked or anything like that. But the thing that got me was sexual immorality.
I got you.
Through pornography, lust, and so that's been the biggest thing from the point of like when I was like. It was introduced to me way back when we lived in Colorado because we had friends, and I was like only 5 at this time.
Yeah.
We were in the basement, and they were telling me like, "Hey, you know how I'm not going to get explicit."
Right. Yeah.
But that was a big thing of why I was seeking, the meditation, the prayer, like.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it anymore, And so I had a girlfriend, and this is kind of getting to like the climax of the testimony here, at the time, and very worldly, immoral, and not actually physically like that, but like temptations and stuff like that, And so dated her through high school, breakup senior year. Senior was terrible for me. I hated senior year. I just run through high school at that point.
Right.
Lots of humiliation stuff happening to me at that time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get to college and have a fresh start.
Yeah.
So I get to college. We ended up getting back together. I'm thinking I'm living the life. I'm doing good. At this time, God's not relevant at all. I would wear a cross, but I would not know anything. I couldn't even tell you the gospel.
Kind of, there was a religiosity about what you did in some ways, but no relationship.
Yeah, no relationship. Like, what's the verse? Like, you deny the power thereof.
Right, right.
And it's like, if I would have
faith without works is dead.
Exactly.
Being alone, right.
And so if I were to die right then, I would have gone to hell.
Right.
Essentially. And so, again, after freshman year, going into sophomore year, the summer of my sophomore year,
right.
This is where, a lot of stuff big happens, We break up again in that same week. This is over the summer of 2019. She basically wished I would die. And in that same week, I was on my way, because I was commuting from Ruston to Shreveport. I was on my way, and you know where the Independence Stadium is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm right there, and I'm driving, and my rear ball joint collapses going 70 miles an hour. And like I'm driving like that. My car pivots and does a 180, and it's still going 70 miles an hour. There's an 18-wheeler here, there's one here, and there's one coming right here. This one passes, and then I'm just holding the wheel like tight, and all of a sudden I feel the car go vroom, 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 like backwards, like Tokyo Drift style. And I'm like, what? And it parks perfectly parallel to the road.
Yeah.
And I look, and that cross that I would always carry is like dangling, and it's almost like a mystical type thing,
I got you.
And it's like, not saying that that's what it was, but
but at the time too. Yeah, no doubt.
I was like, it's dangling right in front of the sun. I'm like, something, I don't know. I'm just shocked. And I called my mom, and like, I almost died, Mom. And they're like, what? And they just come get me. There's this cop that pulls up out of nowhere. He's like, hey, we got to get this off the road. And he's with me throughout that. And my mom said this statement that I think about a lot. She says, God really saved your life today. And when she said that, I was like, And at the time, I was super depressed because the breakup.
Yeah,
thing.
right.
Like, I got to the point where I drew myself at my grave.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. And so, still struggling with lust, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. So that's in the back of my mind. God saved you today.
Right.
And so, I say, okay, I'm done with this, all the PMO stuff, and I try to go 30 days. I get to day 30 and fail. And I am mad. I am extremely upset. This is like the October of 2019. I get super, super upset and I just get on my knees. My mom got me this little this journal, and would have a verse at the end of each page. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. I just put it down, and I said, God save me.
Yeah.
Or I said, God help me. I literally said that. I went to bed. This is when it really got kind of crazy. So I went to bed, and it was like I was like in this dream state. It was really weird. And I'm sitting up, the lamp was on, because at the time, for some reason, I was always scared of the dark.
Right.
You know? So I would keep a lamp on. And I'm sitting up, and I'm scrolling through pictures on my phone, and a picture of my ex pops up, and I hear a whisper in my ear go, Jezebel. Or let me say it, Jezebel.
Yeah.
You know? So, and I never heard of no Jezebel. I don't know what none of that was at the time. I'm like, huh? But something in me knew that something creepy was about to happen. And I scrolled another picture, and it was the same picture, but it was a demonic version. Like, it was, I'm talking like skin peel, like, should I pause?
No. Go ahead. Keep going.
You're good. But like, very like demonic version. My phone like flew out of my hand onto the floor. My body shifted on its back like this. I'm laying down. My light flickers, and it's like this overwhelming force being pushed deep. Like imagine like you're going through a wind tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sound, you can hear the sound of the wind. I can feel the pressure of the wind, and then I feel something leave, but there's something that was replaced. It was really weird. It was a scary moment, but I was at perfect peace, if that makes sense. And then the wind kind of came to a still, but I could still hear it, and I heard, it is finished. Or not it is finished, it is done.
Mm-hmm.
I say it is finished because of New King James.
Yeah. You're fine.
Yeah, it is done.
Yeah.
And I wake up, my light's off, my phone's on the floor, my bed sheets are like kind of like scraggling, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I get in the corner, I'm like, I try calling my mom, like what's going on, you know? And I end up getting a hold of her, and she's like, yeah, something like that happened to me. So I'm like, what do you mean? You know?
Yeah.
So we have that conversation, and this is where the real peak of the testimony happens. There's this guy named Noah Blessing. Have you ever met him?
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I have met him.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you know Noah, you
Right.
never forget
Shout
him.
out Noah.
But we went to class or school together. He would always talk about Jesus, you know, and people made fun of him for it, or would like look at him weird, you know. But he randomly gave me his number like the day before.
Yeah.
And so I'm inside the art building, and where I'm sitting at, there's a door in front of me, and I'm sitting on the bench, and I'm messaging him. I was like, hey man, something crazy happened last night. I need to talk to you about Jesus. We need to talk soon if that's possible. He's like, he messages me back. He's like, yeah, bro, let's link tomorrow. You know? And not even 5 minutes later, he walks into the door right in front of me. And we sat there on that bench, and that's when I fully, you know, he prayed with me, and that's when I fully surrendered my life to God. And eventually that turned into surrendering my whole craft to him. And now we're here.
Right. And so, clarification purposes, obviously everybody's experiences are different, and we're not here to talk experiences. But you say you surrendered your life to the Lord, like we're talking about death, burial, resurrection, gospel of Jesus.
Yes,
and again, I'm not trying to correct anything. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying what we're talking about. Yeah. And so, man, praise the Lord. You know, I do know, I come from a very stoic missionary Baptist background. Yeah. And stories like that are, they're not commonplace in that scenario. But I was privileged to go to India in 2015, I think, with Pastor Paul here at the church. And I do know that God operates outside of my boxes sometimes. And so I'm very cynical. You've learned that about me over the last 3 years. But praise the Lord that He drew you to Himself. Yes. You know, and we're super thankful for that. And one of the things that when I think about you that I'm most thankful for, your humility walking around the school. I'm very loud and just, you know, domineering. You have a very humble, quiet spirit. I see the Lord use both of those things. But one of the big deals is that's who you always are. Like I've never seen you and been like, oh man, he's different today, you know? Like that's how you carry yourself, you know? And I've been super thankful for that. And even talking to Pastor Paul about you, that's one of the things that stands out to me. And it's been a blessing to me. And listening to your heart, you know, for young people and things of that nature, that brings up these questions. And so let's just kind of dive into them and see where this goes. So what are you seeing as the greatest need in the lives of young men in the time in which we live?
Kind of goes back to how you opened it, is a vision of a godly man in their life.
Right.
Whether if it's their dad or their uncle,
right,
Grandpa Bob, you know,
yeah,
or somebody that's completely unrelated, right? Like, or people that you've never even
right,
met. Because a lot of the times that you see, especially when you grow up and the kind of communities I've been in, right? Like, let's just say, like, in black community,
yeah,
right? What is the main thing that people look up to? Right now, it's like the live streamers or even rappers or football stars,
right,
stuff like that. And what do they normally have? Like, it's a little bit weird now, especially in the football scene, because now there's like this shift happening where there's a lot more pointing towards Christ. But growing up, we didn't really see that.
Right.
Like, we would see like the chains flashing, or the cars that they would have, like the women, or whatever it is that the world could offer you. That's what they would want, and that's the same thing that we have now, right? We can see it not only in their language, but also how they carry themselves and how they treat other people too.
Well, in every community, like. And I know you're mainly talking about the black, and not to turn away from that, but like it's something that is out of our reach. You know, it's not people that are speaking directly in. You know, in the white community, athletes, you have, you know, musicians, but they're always outside of our grasp, where they don't have they speak into our lives, but we really don't have any actual relationship with the people that we aspire to be like in most cases. You know, and so we don't see what their life looks like on a very regular basis, the hurt and the pain and the emptiness. You know, and so I think that is cross community. You know, that our young people, and I don't think it was any different with me, you know. You know, I aspired to be like people that most times that I didn't even know. You know, my dad I'm with you, like my dad is my hero. But I didn't realize that while he was at my house, you know, and he passed away in 2007, and I know it now, you know, but I didn't realize it when I was a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy, you know. And so, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And so, exactly, right? Like, I like the part that you said, like, we don't have, like, any, most of the time, really, because, like, when you hear things on a subconscious level, you know, you might mimic them.
Yeah, right.
And so, like, for instance, like when you look at like the music artists, right? We love their music because it seems relatable. But then you also have to look on at a deeper level. It's like, well, what are they actually saying? Right. Like, yeah, they can be singing about depression, but what are they saying against depression? Yeah. You know, or what are they saying against anger? Right. Instead of saying, I'm angry, I'm gonna give it to God. Right. They'll probably say, I'm angry, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yes. You know? Right.
And so, to fully answer the question is, I think the lack of biblical, specifically for men, biblical men who are, you know, corrected by the standards of the word and not just based off of feelings, but they also, you know, Paul talks about it, like what a godly man should exemplify. Right. And so I know for me, those kinds of men, or those kind of men, have been the most impactful towards me. Right. Even if I haven't met them. Right. We were in the library earlier talking about Paul Washington. Right. And so, yeah.
And what I don't want to do right now, because we're talking about the biblical man, and I'm going somewhere with this. What I don't want to do right now is minimize the impact of regular men. Yeah. You know, we got coaches, we got teachers, we got all kind of people, and they're not Christian. You know, and I'm not saying that as a bad thing, but they have impacted these young men in positive ways. But when we think on things that are not temporal, but things that are eternal, when we say biblical man, like I think there's a bunch of different things that we could mean by that. So this is kind of a ad-lib question. So let's define, when we say biblical man, like what are we talking about?
Man, okay, so you're right. You can get good you can get good water from a cistern.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so,
Yes.
but is it the best water?
Right.
We're
Right.
talking about living water.
Yes.
Exactly, right? And so think about it like this. When we say biblical man, what does the biblical man look like? Jesus. What
Amen.
did Jesus do? You talked about it. He
Yeah.
was the suffering servant for who? His bride.
Right.
And so that kind of leads into like marriage, but even looking after the children, the flock,
Mhm.
right? I think that not I think, but what's laid out in Scripture, a biblical man protects others, leads,
Okay.
right? Leads responsibly.
Yeah.
You can lead in an irresponsible way.
Okay. Yes.
And you can see that a lot, like, because we come from like a sports background.
Yeah.
Right? Like if the quarterback's not going to lead the team right, then it's going to go away, or
Right.
even coaches or something like
Yeah.
that. Teaching, the ability to teach others, right? Not just verbally,
Mhm.
but through his actions too.
Yeah.
And then how do they carry themselves? Like, how do they present themselves on the outward, right? Not saying like the outward appearance makes you a man or not,
Right.
but you can tell the cream of the crop from a man.
Yeah.
See, like, to that. And then also, what is their mind fixed on?
Right.
Kingdom-minded, but
Yeah.
also keeping in mind the people that are around you.
Yeah, and I think when you say that, my mind goes to and amen to all of the things that you said. But when we think about kingdom minded, like when we think about what kingdom minded is, like if they don't have an active relationship with the Word of God, like you're not the biblical man that we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you're not actively involved with the Word of God, if you're not actively involved, allowing it to change you,
Exactly.
And not to say that other men can't impact, because I think we got some really, really good men in this community that make impacts all the time.
Exactly.
But when we think about things from the scope of the Lord is going to come back and judge the world one day.
Yeah.
And we think about this biblical man, somebody who walks right, who talks right, who serves right, who leads right, all these things. Now, we said that's Jesus, and so, the things that Jesus did, the things that Jesus taught the apostles, disciples, like we need to add those things to my life. And I think one of the things you see Jesus doing on a regular basis is communing with the Father to seek His will.
Exactly.
And so, yes and amen, we must have some biblical men that will speak into the lives of people, but not just doing that, they have to be living it out as well. Yeah. All right, so this will get back into some of your testimony a while ago, I think. How important is it for young men to have male mentors in their lives? And again, we've established we're talking biblical here. How important is it?
I think, well, if you kind of scale it, it's a necessity.
Right.
Like, I can know speaking, like, specifically for me, I have my stepdad, I have my dad, but I also have my mom, my grandmother, my grandma,
Yeah.
all that. And so I feel like women can also raise really good men because, women know how a really good woman, right? Let me say
Yes,
this in the
right.
way. A good woman will know how she wants a good man to treat her.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But on the other side, as much as we love our moms and stuff like that, there's something about a man, a father figure, that can take a boy to a man.
Right.
Right. And so, repeat the question one more time.
All right. So how important
Yeah.
is it for young men to have male mentors in their lives?
Yeah, too. That, because there's some things that only men can discuss too.
Yeah. Right.
Because we can see it a lot. This is how kind of marital problems happen. Like you can talk to your wife, you can want to be open, but there's some things, happening internally that could negatively affect it, and the enemy could have a foothold
Right.
with that, And so when we're growing up, to have a male role model, someone that you aspire to be, it depends on who you're choosing also.
Yeah.
And so you also kind of get the cards that are dealt to you sometimes.
That's right.
Too. And so you can look at that, but then also be like, I don't want to be like that.
Yeah.
And so
right.
there's like the inverse effect happening.
Yes.
Of like male mentorship. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I see how that's happening. I don't really want
Right.
to do that. And so I would say it's very, very important to not only know you know exactly who you want to be as a man, but where to go to
Right.
find out how to be like
Well, and I think that as a boy,
that. Yeah.
you're going to have examples of who to go to, right? But your mind still works like a boy.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to seek out examples that make you feel more powerful or better about yourself or something like that. And so I think it's incumbent upon us as men who love the Lord to fulfill the Great Commission and seek out these things. I think a lot of times that's not happening.
Yeah.
That, you know, life has caused us to be so busy. We've so filled our lives with things as Christians that a lot of times we look more like the world than we do like Jesus, because we're just running around doing everything we have to do to survive in a lot of ways. But I think it's vitally important for us as men who love Jesus to go find these people. Now, what do I mean? Well, could me and you not show up at work for a week while we go out and look for people? Well, no. But there's what, 250 kids
Exactly.
that we see 5 days a week, you know, that somebody's impacting them.
Yeah.
That they're being impacted by some male influence in their lives. And they're looking for a male influence to be impacted by. Exactly. And so when we think about this importance, I mean, you just look at where we are as a world today. And this is not to speak ill of your circumstance or anybody else's circumstance, but I think we see what a culture that grows up without the nuclear family looks like unless Jesus does something.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, how have you seen that played out, not in your life or your story, but just kind of in general, you know, in the kids that you talk to and see on a daily basis?
Yeah, in a lot of cases, because it's outside of school sometimes too. Because like I said, I'm working with
Right.
children. And so some days, like you can tell on their faces, you know, something happened with like the mom's boyfriend,
Right.
and they didn't like it, you know.
Yeah.
And me in that position, I have to be like, well, look, you know, I have to kind of like reel with them and be like, hey, like, whatever happened, that's not how it should have happened or went
Right.
down. You know, not trying to speak on the, you know, family or anything like that.
Yeah.
But in everything, when I come across cases like that, I try to point them to the truth.
Right.
I always ask them, I say, what do you think Jesus would have done?
Right.
And then I'll crack open the whole Bible with like a
Yeah.
5-year-old and be like, hey,
Right.
I'll read to them and be like, hey, like this is,
Yeah.
you know, and Jesus will come and correct all of that.
Right.
You know, but the nuclear family, we see it expressed through the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We see that through Jesus and the bride. You know,
Right.
we see the fruit of it.
Yeah.
Right? If the church is committed to Christ, it grows.
Right.
And I mean like taking over Rome.
Yes, right.
Growth,
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
And when a family, this is one thing that me and my wife agreed about. You know, even though like we've had troubles and stuff like that, what we always agreed about is we would never want to repeat the same mistakes that our parents did. The separation. You know?
Right.
Because when the separation happens, that's when a lot of negative stuff happens for
Right.
the kid, you know. And I feel like, you know, I can't speak because I'm not a parent. I can kind of infer, like, sometimes the parents are so focused on, like, their relationship or themselves that, once again, they forget Christ and all of it. And
Yeah.
or in some cases, they never had him to
Right,
begin with, you
right.
know? And so, but on the outside, you're also affecting the child, too.
Yeah.
And so the decline of the father in the home has led to, you know, a lot of, outside of wedlock, you know, babies and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But I'm starting to see like a little bit of a rise in that now with our generation,
Yeah.
the younger generation. But yeah, if I can encapsulate it, it just leads to a lot of rebellion
Yeah.
towards the truth.
And I do, like what you said, I do think we see some good things going on. I think you see some things happening in little pockets. And this is a podcast for another time, but I do think there are some men that have a voice in communities that are talking about manhood again, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, to be a man, it's okay to be a woman, it's okay to be these things, you know. And so I am hopeful that some of the things that had become and have become mainstream, that Christians are helping push back the darkness. I've heard Chandler say that a lot. That we're just doing our part to push back the darkness. And so, with that being said, what are some dangers and pitfalls out there for young men as to how it relates to how they spend their time? And let me kind of be specific. Like, me and you operate in different worlds in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that is, like, you've talked about gaming and things of that nature, and art and things of that nature. I will sneak away on a Saturday just to watch football all day from my family and everybody else, And so I think there are very real similarities, but I think you operate in some spaces that I don't operate in too. And so, just kind of across the board, some general pitfalls that we find in the things that you do and the things that we do, I do, what are some pitfalls that we see for these young men?
Ineffectively using their time.
Yes.
The enemy, this is good. If the enemy can't have you specifically, he'll want your time. Because the more you get distracted from the work that God's called you to do,
right, the
more that you're preventing from, once you said, pushing back that darkness.
Right.
And so there's a bunch, especially, let's say the gaming community. When I say toxic, I mean vulgarity at its highest.
Right.
Even when it comes to just across the board too, is lust. I say, we read it in the Bible. Joseph was a very young man.
Right.
Potiphar's wife.
Yeah.
Even not just lust for women, but lust for life.
Yeah.
Lust for money. You know. And like you said earlier too, it's like when you're young, right? When you're 14, you're not thinking about your dad being a hero. You're thinking about the guy who says you can get rich in 15 minutes.
Yes, right.
Your hero.
A pyramid and Ponzi scheme, right? Yeah, no doubt.
And so it's almost like how it's stated in Ecclesiastes. Sorry, it's all in vain.
Yes, right.
Know? And so I feel like if a young man, and it's really, really hard, especially working with them, if a young man can understand that he has been called to a higher purpose.
Right.
Something that's been God ordained, God given, and placed when they were knitted in their mother's womb.
Right.
They might not know what it is.
Right.
But what they can do is to seek the Lord.
Right.
And in the midst of seeking the Lord, you know how He works. He'll lead you to one area to get you to another area.
Providentially move you and work. Yes.
Exactly. So if the young guys, if we can really tell them, not just how much God loves them, but how much God invites us to partner with Him. God told the Great Commission.
Yeah.
He said, go out and make disciples.
Right.
Baptize them in my name. Jesus could have just gone and taken everybody He wanted to, but He said, I want you to do this for me.
Yeah.
And so it's something special when that happens, especially when a dad tells your, I can recall the times where my dad was like, hey, let's go fishing. And to me, those are some of the memories that I call upon. You know? And it's that's the same thing that's happening with the young guys. It's their time is so special, especially in this. Not everyone's going to be a football star, basketball star, gaming star, whatever it is, right? But what everybody can be is a child of God.
Yeah.
Follow God's will. Right. And so that's what I think is spending as much time with God as you can so that way you don't fall into the pitfall of the enemy.
Well, in the Bible, it tells us that God has put eternity in the hearts of men. And I think as Christian men, that's what we should be capitalizing on in the young people. If the Bible's true and God really placed eternity in their hearts, if we really understand that this is not all there is, don't get all you can down here, because there is something else. And I know that it takes a work of God and a miracle of God to open a blind eye, to awaken a dead heart. But I think if we lead more with the gospel and for the gospel's sake, I think you would see more people responding to that gospel, And so when I think about pitfalls, man, I'm going to talk from my perspective. I didn't really struggle with a lot of drugs and alcohol either.
Yeah.
You know, I struggled with sexual sin in a lot of ways, and thoughts, you know, terrible thoughts, and I wasn't raised like that. Like my mom was like the queen of our house.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't. My dad's dead, so they can't arrest him for child abuse. But I'm pretty sure that at the expense of my mom, we might have gotten abused sometimes. You know, and when I say that, like for popping off, smart aleck, you know, like behind the woodshed type stuff.
Yeah.
And so so when I think about that, when I think about just kind of who my dad was, but I understand at the end of his life, I saw him, you know, he had both legs amputated. He had kidney failure and he got gangrene, had both his legs amputated. And when I think about things I saw him do there at the table praying for us in the mornings, you know, in his wheelchair and things of that nature, and I think about the pitfalls that I still fell into, you know, thinking about those boy decisions that we make. Across the board, it's this deviant. And when I say deviant, I'm not talking about always sexually deviant.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this divisive nature. In there's something Roblox, is that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? And so like I'd never even heard of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that was. But I heard some news reports after Governor Landry a while back had made some things illegal or something like that. I don't really even know everything about it. But I hear bits and pieces, and I go from 0 to 10.
Yeah.
You know, I heard my daughter say it one day, that Roblox. I'm like, you better not ever. I better not ever catch you looking at that, playing with that, anything, you know. And she's like, Dad, it's just a video. I'm like, my daughter don't have a headset to talk on, you know. But it's this divisive flesh. And it's in anything. It's in sports. It's in games. It's in music. It's in all of these things. If we're not given to the Lord, you know, then everything can be pitfalls. We're idol factories. I've heard that before. You know, we create these idols. And so just these, I think the pitfall that we have to be most careful about is ourself.
Exactly.
You know, making ourself God.
Yeah, and like once again, I brought up the topic of lust of life. Like even now,
Right.
Like once you become saved, it's not that you stop having like these temptations.
Yeah.
The thing is that's different for us now is that we know who to go to.
Yeah.
And so I'm very careful about, especially like with the studio stuff. Like now we're starting to find success and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to pray literally daily that my identity is not in the success
Right.
of Studio Bless. It's in who Jesus is, what he did,
Right.
and who he says I am in him.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so, yeah, I fully agree with you on that.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to give you kind of the last word before I speak us out of here.
Okay.
So if you could give advice to someone who feels that they have no one that is qualified to mentor them. I mean, because I think we see that, me and you, on a daily basis, like these young men who, like, they're going home to God knows what.
Yeah.
You know, what would you say to that young man? How would you minister
So when you
advice?
When you say qualified, do you mean?
Well, we're talking about biblically, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, like I think there are men all over our parish that are qualified to mentor morality.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm talking about, you know, and we have some constraints on us within within where we are, you know, and things of that nature. So if somebody comes to you at school and they're like, you know, hey, Mr. McKinney, I somehow caught that video you did over break, and you said I need some biblical mentor, but I ain't got nobody in my life that, like, we don't really do Jesus or talk about Jesus. Like, what do you tell them? How do you speak to them?
Yeah, I've had a lot. Like, I've even had, like, discussions where and I'm more abrasive than I think I should be.
Me
but
too.
I stand on truth no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it costs, because he did it all.
Yeah,
You
right,
know, and
right.
if even like this is what Jesus says. He says, even if you give a cup to these little ones, right?
Right.
And so when they come up to me, and most of the time I already know them because I've seen them throughout the community, right? And they'll often ask me questions like, "Hey, what do you mean by this?" Right? But to answer the question about if they feel like they don't have anybody that's qualified to, be that male role model for them, I would, in my shoes, if they're telling me that, then the weight of responsibility falls on myself.
Agreed.
And it would be a disservice to be like, okay, and then just leave them on, because you can get that mentality where we teach at, it's only for a year.
Right.
In
Right.
my case, it's only half a year.
Yeah. Right.
And so I'm not only doing my best as a teacher for that half of the year, but I'm doing my best as a man because there's a lot of young men who come in and they think they know what a man is, but then they don't.
Right.
And so I'm having to do that, but not just do it for the sake of doing it, but doing it in a way that portrays Christ without even having to say anything.
Right.
And I get that a lot, right? Like even with some of our coworkers, right? Whenever there's a kid that has an issue, they'll call who, but then sometimes they'll bring them to me or
Right.
to you,
Right.
And we're able to talk to them in such a way. We don't even say anything like scriptural.
No.
I feel like what we do is we just sit and we listen to the kid.
Yeah.
We listen and then we relate to them.
Right. Yeah.
And that's really what a guy or a young man at that time really wants.
Yeah.
Someone who will listen.
Right.
Because we've been at that point
Mm-hmm.
where we feel like the world is against us and we just want to say whatever.
No doubt.
And we get to the point it's like, well, nobody cares anywhere.
Right.
Nobody's listening. Well, then in steps Coach Pittman, in steps Mr. McKinney,
Right.
in steps whoever.
Yeah.
And we're like, so tell me what's going on.
Yep.
And we talk to them. We don't talk at them. We
Mm-hmm.
talk with them, and then they may even say something like, "Man, shoot, if she said that to me."
Right.
And I'll be like, "Well, let's pause for
Right.
a second. Why is she saying that?
Right.
Why is he saying that? What about that is making you mad?" And then I'll even go a step further, and I'll say, "Hey, what's happening at home?"
Mm-hmm.
And then when I ask them that question, because we went through the whole stages of letting them vent, and now we're like, okay, I see what the problem is.
Yeah.
Able to get them to calm down, and not only have we got the kid to calm down, I make them go apologize to the teacher, no matter what happened.
Right.
And then what happens is that you've established a relationship right then.
Right.
And so, like you said, if they feel unqualified, be that qualification for them, because they're going to take that experience that you took, if they ever ask you that question, to the next person that they want to seek out for advice.
Yeah. And that was really the urge of that question, is for men in our churches. Like, seek these young men out.
Yeah.
The world's seeking them out. They're seeking them out and they're adding them to the club. We've been given a mandate to seek them out. Exactly. Jesus came to seek and save the lost, and He ascended and left us with that mission. When I say that mission, obviously we don't save anybody, but we do seek them out. We give them the message of the gospel. We understand that all power's been given unto Him in heaven and on earth. And so that was really the thrust of that question, it's incumbent upon us as Christian men to go, and to seek those things where you are. Exactly. You might work in construction, and you're not part of a 14-year-old's life, but I guarantee you there's some young men out there doing construction that need a Christian man to speak into their lives, because they might not have had one, ever. And so that was really the thrust of that question. So, man, thank you so much for coming, and I hope I didn't take up too much of your time.
Dude,
I know your wife's at home cooking,
Yeah.
and so go home and eat it and tell her thank you. It was wonderful.
Hear that?
Yes. Yes. I'm not even there, and I know.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. All right. And so I appreciate you very much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, man. Have a good evening.